Most people are familiar with the story of Atlantis, the legendary city said to have disappeared beneath the sea, as described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. To this day, opinion remains divided over whether Atlantis should be understood as a literal place, or simply as a morality tale. But thousands of miles to the east, in the Indian subcontinent, there's a remarkably similar story, one that is perhaps far less well known, the story of Lemuria, and its connection to the legendary lost land of Kumari Kandam. The story of Lemuria actually began with science. In 1864, an article entitled The Mammals of Madagascar proposed that Madagascar in India may once have been part of a much larger continent. This missing landmass was given a name, Lemuria. At the time, scientists were searching for an explanation for the unusual distribution of lemurs between Madagascar and India. The idea was that a now submerged landmass could have once connected these regions, allowing animals to migrate between them. And at the time, the theory was taken seriously. But science changed with the emergence of continental drift and eventually the modern theory of plate tectonics. The idea of a gigantic submerged continent connecting Madagascar and India was no longer considered necessary. The continents weren't simply pieces of land that had mysteriously sunk beneath the ocean. They were moving plates, and Lemuria, as originally imagined, disappeared from mainstream science. But something strange happened. The idea refused to disappear completely. Further east, among Tamil speakers in South India, there was another story, the story of Kumari Kandam. The term itself first appeared in the 15th century Kanda Puranam, the Tamil version of the Skanda Puranam. But stories about ancient lands being swallowed by the sea appear in earlier Tamil literary works. According to these traditions, there was once a large portion of land that was ruled by the Pandyan kings before being submerged by the ocean. And this is where the two stories eventually become connected. When the idea of Lemuria arrived in colonial India, the country was going through a period in which folklore and historical knowledge were increasingly being blended together. Lemuria was eventually equated with Kumari Kandam. A scientific hypothesis about a lost landmass became intertwined with ancient Tamil traditions about land loss beneath the sea. But the story became even bigger. Some interpretations propose that the Pandyan kings of Kumari Kandam had once ruled enormous portions of the Indian subcontinent. And from there came an extraordinary claim that Tamil civilization was among the oldest civilizations in the world, perhaps even the oldest. According to this interpretation, when Kumari Kandam was submerged, its people didn't simply vanish. They scattered across the world, and as they migrated, they carried their knowledge and culture with them. Some have therefore suggested that Kumari Kandam was not simply a lost piece of land, but the cradle of human civilization itself. It's an extraordinary idea, but is there any truth behind it? Modern geology does not support Lemuria as it was originally imagined in the 19th century. There's no evidence for a gigantic continent connecting India and Madagascar that suddenly sank beneath the Indian Ocean. But that doesn't mean every story about lost landmass must be completely fictional. During the end of the last ice age, sea levels rose dramatically. Coastal landscapes that were once inhabited or accessible became submerged. Across the world, ancient coastlines disappeared beneath the oceans. So it is possible that stories about lands swallowed by the sea could preserve distant memories of real environmental changes. But that's very different from proving the existence of a massive lost civilization. And that distinction is important. We have evidence that land was lost. We have traditions describing land being lost. But we don't have archaeological evidence proving that an enormous civilization called Kumari Kandam once occupied a continent beneath the Indian Ocean. So what are we left with? On one side, there's the scientific story of Lemuria, a 19th century hypothesis created to explain animal distribution. later rendered unnecessary by the discovery of continental drift and plate tectonics. On the other, there are Tamil traditions describing ancient lands lost beneath the sea, and somewhere between the two, a modern legend emerged, a story of a lost continent, an ancient civilization, and a people who supposedly spread across the world after their homeland disappeared. Was Kumari Kandam an actually lost civilization? There's no conclusive archaeological evidence proving it. Can ancient memories of submerged coastal landscapes have helped inspire these traditions? It's possible. And could future discoveries change our understanding of the ancient Indian Ocean? Perhaps. For now, Kumari Kandam remains suspended between history, mythology, geology, and legend. A story about a land that supposedly disappeared, but whose memory refuses to die. Maybe it was never a continent at all. Maybe it was a legend built from fragments of real history. Or perhaps, somewhere beneath the waves, there are still places of a much older story waiting to be discovered. If you enjoy ancient mysteries, lost civilizations, and forgotten worlds, subscribe to Ancient Destinations for more journeys into the unknown.